Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Feminine Legacy Podcast. This is your host, Jackie Ma. And today I'm excited to bring on a beloved sister, Tara Preston, who is all things divine feminine, who works with the Akashic field, the Akashic records. I'm really excited to bring her on to share and talk with us a little bit today and dive in.
Mm,
So, welcome,
Yay.
Tara.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Yes. If you do you want me to do a little bit more of an introduction or do you want me to? Yeah,
I
go
would
ahead.
love, yeah, let me just pass it over to you. Let's talk
Yeah, of course.
about what's happening. Who are you? What's going on?
Yeah, totally. Well, just to start off, I guess I've been, devoted to this path of service. I'm sure just like you, but officially like 13 years ago, I really stepped onto this path. And it was with the birth of my daughter, making a pretty big move from the city and an old life to the country. And had this emerging kind of calling and vision to be of service. And it was shortly after that I found the Akashic Records. So that's like 13 years ago. And at that time, there were not a lot of people who knew what the Akashic Records were. I had to do my fair bit of marketing and really educating people on what this beautiful tool was. So I started working with the Akashic Records then and started working with women who were being called into more of their soulful evolution. And that's where it started. And that's, really so much of the work that I'm doing today. Along the way, I created and birthed my own kind of process and modality for working with and reading the Akashic Records called the Flower of Life Akashic Healing Method. And now I have founded the Akashic Women's School and yeah, and just really work with women who are being called and kind of to the next evolution of their leadership, which is so I'm sure very aligned for one aspect for sure of the Feminine Legacy podcast.
Mm,
So yeah, and
that's
here I am. And
beautiful,
I
and we're
can
so
definitely
happy to have you.
yeah, thank you. I'm so excited to be here with you. Yes.
Hmm. So I want to lean into that a little bit. I want to lean into leadership and talk
Oh,
about,
I love it.
yeah, because it's leadership is it's so different what we grew up knowing it was and what it actually is, at least for me. And so I'd love to
Hmm.
like hear about that from you, right? That way in which we become one with our own sense of direction, one with our own
Mm.
sense of knowing, and then how that propels us forward as like a self-directed prophecy, and then
Yeah.
how to ignite that in other women, right? Because I know I can tell from what you're doing. It's not about come follow me. It's come and assemble and preside in your own seat of leadership. Right.
Absolutely. Being self-sourced in our own leadership. And I mean, when I'm working with women, I'm working with women who are, at the top of big corporations, to running small businesses, to moms, to women who are really stepping into their feminine leadership, on this more kind of like spiritual path. And it really is about the cultivating of our deeper desires, but what the vision and the calling is within us, and whether we decide to claim that and lead from that place or not. That's definitely one important piece of cultivating the foundation of our own leadership. But you're talking about having a different type of leadership role model growing up, and um, I can certainly, say that that was the case for myself and for many, many women and people, especially if we've worked in corporations, and it tends to be a much more kind of masculinized way of leading.
Mhm.
Feminine leadership, or, it's kind of like feminine or authentic leadership, is really about cultivating our own strengths, our own genius, an understanding of our own gifts, and also the way that we uniquely see and think about the world around us. I think that's really an important piece, especially, I mean, for any woman. I think that we sometimes can bump up against the projections of others, or maybe a different or older leadership style. Like if we're, navigating more of a 3D business paradigm, a brick and mortar, that tends to be the case. And then we have to clarify for ourselves ourselves, like what is true for us? What do we value? What is our truth and our perception around what our views are? And that's a really powerful piece that I love holding space for, because it's often where we start to break down and shift old paradigms too, by really trusting and cultivating that deeper connection and awareness. And yet it can be one of the scarier pieces to really take a stand for what that is. So
Mhm.
yes, I think I answered all of it, but yeah, I'd love to hear. I know you have so much to say about it. Yeah.
I love it so much. It just becomes so alive. It,
Yeah.
like all the distortions start to melt away, and then something becomes birthed in the field of aliveness. And then
Mhm.
there's this newfound tranquility, this newfound diversity within our own sphere of influence. And we just
Mhm.
so the fractures kind of start to melt away, and there becomes this
Mhm.
like very potent new opportunity to design something that is like deeply from within, and which is something
Mhm.
that I think that we haven't really known before, or at least I haven't, right? Like to be able to really see it
Yeah.
and taste it, touch it, because I didn't know it in myself. I also couldn't see it in other people. Um, and
Yes.
and if I saw it in other people, it still didn't feel like it was something I could have too. Like it had to come from, it had to come in,
Mhm.
to nibble on it and
Yeah.
to taste
It
this.
takes time, I think, that clarification. I think sometimes too, like my husband has been one of my biggest teachers. Has his master's in business. I'm spiritual business. There was a time where I even remember him really not understanding the spiritual business concept and not believing in it. And like, bless him, we've come a long way. We've been together for many, many years. But, in the beginning, I really had to be like, well, that's not how I feel about it. Well, that's not how I think about it. Well, I think I can make money doing this, and it just kind of, I had to sit and like really clarify like why I felt that was true, and then learn to take a stand for and value the truth. And sometimes it's and just journeying with women for so long, sometimes it's a strand by strand, I think, is like what you're talking about, like that kind of clarification piece that can just take some time to get to know our truths, and then to trust it,
Yeah.
and so yeah, right, to take it, so it's easy to say, okay, well, just take a stand for it and value it, but to start to really speak it and uphold boundaries around it, and then to start to see where it actually has positive impact, where
Mhm.
we're starting to create like real change and alignment with what we want and our expression. And then we have people start to meet us in that place of a deeper truth that we're bringing forward. And I've always seen, especially with feminine leadership, is that has a beautiful ripple effect, and often, creates these really lovely paradigm shifts. And we just need to, yeah, be courageous enough. And it does require courage to
Oh,
cultivate it, and to, yeah, and to take a stand for it.
I love that. It does. It requires so much courage, but it's something that we really have.
Yeah.
Like everybody was born with that. It's just exercising it and seeing that it's worthwhile to like to use
hmm
it to access it, right? Because I don't know, I'm just thinking about this week alone, like how you just touch a woman's heart. Like you touch, it's
hmm
like touch that fractal and it opens all on its own. It's the
hmm
softest touch. It doesn't require a
Yeah.
great deal of effort.
Mhm.
It's just in that depth of connection that it just spirals open, and then it just takes on a life of its own. And so the
Mm.
courage is then found like it's in the woo, like whoosh. It's like
Mhm.
something is open, and then
Mhm.
wow, I'm just gonna like allow the flowering of that, and then the momentum just propels you. And then
Yes.
once you've gone a little bit, it's like almost opening up to the love song or the river. And once you've gone down just a
Mhm.
little bit and you come up against some of those impediments, you've already tasted some of the nectar, the joy. So the momentum is there, like, all right, like
Yeah.
it's worth it for me to face the next thing because I have this lived experience of what I've already come through.
Exactly. And I think the lived experience is the embodiment and also allows us to trust. It's like, okay, I've exercised this muscle. Like I can grow stronger in this. I can do this again. Now I know what this looks like and feels like. Not that it won't be edgy at certain places, but we know what it looks like and it feels like. And it gets easier to open to it and to trust it and to allow it to lead.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes, I love that. And also too, I was just thinking as you were saying that, I was like, yeah, I mean, it's so many women, I hear this with the women that I attract, I just want freedom. I just want to be free.
yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
I'm like, yeah, then we need to get the external world matching the internal desires and values and your truth. And then to, start to make space for that expression. And then it grows and it gets bigger. Right. And then, yeah. And then we're birthing our soul businesses and speaking our truth in bigger and more amplified ways. And yeah. And I think that's so beautiful. And as I'm saying that, I'm like, and it's that journey of like, of evolution too,
It is.
allowing our expression to grow and anchor in bigger ways as we allow the leadership to guide. Yeah, the inner leadership to guide.
Yeah,
Beautiful conversation. I love
it
this.
is. Me
Yeah.
too. I'm really enjoying it. Something
Yeah.
too around this that is interesting. I think it was like there was a pin in something that you were saying, which was like the women that come to me, the women that come to you, like this, even this feels like something I want to lean into the beauty around the recognition in one another, even you and me right now being here together on
Mhm.
this podcast, right? There was
Right.
something I saw in you
Right.
that I acknowledged and admired and respected and was like, okay, it's something that is connected to me and it's something that I want to bring in, right? So
Right.
this beauty of like the recognition we have in one another uh,
Mhm.
is so powerful, right? The women who will come to you are different than the women that will come to me. And because all of us, all of these divine leaders carry a symbiosis of power that wants to be drawn out within those that come for
Mhm.
themselves, right? But it's like there is something in the field of like, oh, this person has that thing, I have this thing, and this really beautiful connection with the soul, like because any of this is, it's the soul has to have a recognition.
Right.
We're not playing in the field of just 3D reality.
Right.
It's like this is like deeply tender soulful connection, like
Mhm.
lineages that ignite and come back together in all of these ways, because I mean, even on the world wide web, we are in a web, right?
Mhm.
Right,
Yes,
we're in
absolutely.
that web and that flower of life, right? So all these
Yes.
like whose fractal is combining and coming together to bring through the thread of the mother of the divine feminine in whatever way.
Yes, I totally, yeah, hear you. I love it because when I created the Flower of Life Akashic Healing modality, and actually previously when I had been working with the Akashic records and I had done for that, so for 6 or 7 years, it was a little bit more of a mental body way of working with the Akashic records. And I felt like there was something that wanted to drop into the body and it could be accessed from the heart. And the
Yeah.
modality was born. But one of the more important pieces for me through that process was that each woman understand the potency of her medicine in sacred space.
Mm,
Yes, we work with the Akashic field and the Akashic records, and those are glorious pieces and tools. But your medicine is so potent. And so, really cultivating and understanding and coming to and valuing the gift of our medicine and how we can touch each other with it and
yeah.
how valuable it is. Yeah, in this exchange. So
Mm,
I love that. Yes. Yeah.
love
And
that.
how beautiful it is. We talk about like holding a mirror up to another woman so that we can mirror back her medicine, right? And like let her see and know. So yeah, I love this. So that was beautiful. Thank
Yeah,
you.
it's so beautiful. Thank you. Um, yeah, there's so many facets to this, and it's so beautiful. Like as we heighten in our awareness and hone into our intuition and lean into the discernment that is required, right, in all of these pathways, especially in the
Mhm.
land of, and we call it magic, but it's really our natural state It seems magical
Mhm.
because we're in 3D reality, but it's not so
Right.
magical. It's because it's just the nature of of reality outside of the body, right? But
Mhm.
while we're in the
Yes.
body, everything feels like it's almost astonishing, right? Like, oh, look at
Yes.
the flower, look at like everything becomes so alive.
Alive. I was gonna say alive too. Yeah. Yeah.
And
You
so
said something and it's just eluded me. Sorry, keep going and maybe it'll come back. There was just something that I wanted to kind of spin off of, but
yeah.
yes.
So wait, hold on. Where did I go with that then? So
Oh
yeah,
no, I shouldn't have said anything.
all of
Go
this
ahead.
like aliveness and oh, so the discernment. So being able to
That
discern.
was the piece. Yes.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And especially now, we know because of everything that has been happening over the, thousands of years. And here we are again in these bodies
Mhm.
as temples. And
Mhm.
we're refining, we're elevating, we're growing, we're healing our shadows. We're doing all the things and we're bringing big power through the
Mhm.
vessel that the mother is using so many of our instruments in a very I want to be careful when I use the word use, but I mean it from its high perspective as though we are
Mhm.
becoming an embodiment and merging with the divine in a way that
Mhm.
is a co-creative dance of sovereign
Mhm.
relationship.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
And we offer ourselves in that way. It's like, pick me,
Mhm.
right? Like
Yeah.
I'm in. This love
Yes.
affair is so delicious. The devotion is there.
Mhm.
And so this need for women also to cultivate all these facets of
Mhm.
themselves in this dance of like, here we have the mirrors, here we have
Yeah.
a range of diversity around shadow and light and what is playing in the arena of this world. And so I sense that in
Mhm.
you too, this deep understanding, like when we're talking about desire and leadership and all these beautiful things, it is soft and blissful and playful, and it's also like very direct, very clear.
Mhm.
It is like, it's not funny business,
Mhm.
not that like blissed out bullshit. It's like
Mhm.
that refined sense of high divine knowledge, wisdom, grace, that
Mhm.
is true divine feminine, like not the distortions. And we have to keep right
Right.
looking at the echoes of those distortions in ourselves,
Mhm.
in the world, and being like, nope, that's not quite the tune. Nope, that's off for me. And
Mhm.
like keep attuning the instrument and
I
yeah,
love it.
it's
Well, so I would say kind of like anchored channels, like that were anchored channels. And the reason I would say that is because we were talking about discernment. And I'm like, that's a really important piece, I think, that comes at a certain point too, in terms of how we master and hold our own energy. Right. And so now we get clarity over, who we are, who we're being called to be, what our desires are, but then to be able to like anchor and hold it in our own energy and through our own bodies and be able to discern, where we're being pulled off track even,
mm,
or where we're getting distracted. And so I think that becomes a really beautiful piece. And I know within the scope of my own work and on my own journey too, it really did start with that connection to essence, the heart, and then dropping into the primal power and then dropping deeper into like the channel and clearing out some of the like heavier energy and pain bodies,
yeah,
and then being able to fully occupy my own channel so that as I was clear on not just kind of the terrain of my own inner foundation, but on my vision and on my desires, I could powerfully anchor it and then use my own creative sexual energy to like carry the vision forward. And also, it's a journey. So, depending on who's listening and where you're at, it's a journey. And I mean, I've been on this path for well over a decade. I know there's more.
yeah,
And those pieces came along, and I really devoted myself to the piece that was required for me to be able to drop into more of my embodied feminine leadership, to hold more and more of the vision that I was being called to be. I kind of love how the leadership piece started out as such a soft
yeah.
internal framework and then really built to, yeah, yeah, how powerful we are. Yeah. You know, and so many women they have the big vision, which is beautiful, but we need to be able to hold it. And so, you know, it becomes that journey of recalibrating our body and our frequency to be able to, you know, shift vibrational states in a way where we can, you know, integrate a new energetic understanding of ourselves, birth the vision, but actually hold the vision with greater ease. Yeah. Mhm.
That makes me
Yeah.
want to lean into birth.
Yeah.
So I'm going to speak about it. I want to speak about it with you first
Yeah.
from
Mhm.
a place of both of us are mothers, so we physically
Mhm.
have housed life
Yeah.
inside of us.
Yeah.
So for you, if you're not a mom, you're still a mom, and if you know you're still a mom in this world. But I
Yeah.
just want to start by like talking about holding that power physically and
Mm.
how interesting how our paths for me I'll just say and then I want to hand
Yeah,
it over to
sure.
you just this holy like holy
Mhm.
intrinsic power
Mhm.
you never know what what you don't know until you know it, right? Like to even have the
Mhm.
capacity to hold that type of profound power and let it live like physically and breathe inside of you and
Mhm.
then even tending to that, like
Mhm.
tending to the life that is then created in everyday experience and expression with the way in which we give, receive energy, mother, extend
Mhm.
ourselves, how that holding is profound, like
Mhm.
profound in such a bones and
Mhm.
cellular way.
Mhm.
And how I feel like that is for so many women, that is like an arch, that's like an arching point, right? Of like, of
Mhm.
what Shakti and what life force creative power truly is. And then having, when you experience that and you're a visionary, right? Like
Mhm.
to be able to like, it's like all these different forms of inner body understanding come online in such a tangible way. It's like,
Mhm.
yeah, it feels to me right now like solar and lunar really, really coming together in unity and this yeah, just this bringing together of polarity and high consciousness and
Mhm.
form that
Mhm.
is, I mean, isn't a masterful teacher.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's so many pieces around what you just said. I know for me, after the you know, process of giving birth, I actually became a doula, and then I didn't actually move forward with it. I chose this path instead, but it was just such an enormously powerful experience for me, and I wanted women to be able to listen to their bodies and to be able to trust their bodies and to really feel and know the power of that strength with whatever they're birthing.
Yeah.
So I absolutely love that. And I don't know about you, but I've worked with so many moms. Being a mother was an initiation in and of itself, and a visionary mother. And I had Audrey in 2009, but I mean, it really opened up the next leg of like my purpose in the world and my higher calling. Like I really felt that. And I know you do a lot of root work, but one thing I know with mothers is that when they wake up to that higher calling, the higher soulful calling, right? They're being called into this evolutionary journey of anchoring and opening and connecting. And there's a recalibration that happens throughout the family matrix as they learn to hold their power in a new way, which I'm always like, it's some of my favorite work because it's more group dynamic based, because oftentimes relationships want to reharmonize around the mother finding a new kind of center of gravity and unlocking more of her voice and her power in the home. And there's also like a lineage, like ripple effect that happens like through that process. So it's so beautiful. So some of the most important work we could be doing. So yeah. Yeah.
Agreed. I love what you've just said. And it is lineage work. It's just so bountiful because it just consistently is like the breath that keeps on giving to everybody. And
Mm.
everybody can assimilate and find a new space. And how
Mhm.
that brings so much hope,
Yeah, it
right?
does.
Like how
Yeah,
things can change so quickly in an instant
right.
just because the heartbeat of the mother shifts.
Right.
The entire
Mhm.
paradigm of the home and the energies And everything, it really brings me back to being in the center, like really taking residency at the center of
Mm.
ourselves, because in that, whether it's your children, which is very powerful to watch, whether it's our children, whether it's our beloveds, our families, our men, whoever it is, our
Mm-hmm.
moms, like
Yes.
everybody, right? It's like
Yeah.
it can happen instantly, or it can happen months later, and you're like, whoa, that shift is like anchored in. There's a massive shift going on there. Right.
Being on this path, I keep saying this, but being on this path for so long, there's really been like sometimes a period of a year or two where I know I'm on the edge of an evolution, like I'm saying yes, like again to something bigger and whatever it is. And I'll say yes and I'll start doing the work and I'll see my family of origin start to like bump up against their stuff like big time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's an interesting journey to like witness and hold like, ancestrally or just from the like karmically from the family matrix of origin, what they're moving through and shifting as you say yes to more of your soul path. I don't know. Yeah, it's so fascinating. You can't, and it's almost like you can't make that up. Like I'm like,
I know
wow,
you can't.
everybody's moving through so much. And I sometimes, and I know this with clients too, like I'll put the brakes on,
Yeah.
especially for visionary women that are being called into more of their soulful evolution. We have the capacity to actually move quite quickly, but I find that we'll often put the brakes on and we're waiting for the pieces to shift into alignment. Yeah. The
I
pieces of like, relationship dynamics. Yes.
I totally understand that. Yeah, watching my son is 30 years old, and just
Oh,
watching
wow. Yeah.
that, like when the super progression comes and then when the walls, it's fascinating. And then feeling like, wait, like just hold, hold, hold. And oh,
Yes.
even saying that makes me like, it really fills my heart, because holding that power and just holding it there until everybody's on board with the next state of evolution. And it's tricky, right? Because it's that in
Mm-hmm.
between liminal space of like, am I holding myself back, or is this right on par? Like, this is what's
Mm-hmm.
next. And like knowing that sense of mother in you, like that deep,
Yeah.
deep inner listening of like, sometimes you're a catalyst, and the whole thing opens up and everybody has to open. And sometimes you have to
Mm-hmm.
really hold at the center
Mm-hmm.
just
Mm-hmm.
until everything's on board. And
Mm-hmm.
then the whole wave can go together,
Yes. Yeah. No,
right?
I'm with you. Yeah. Yeah.
So, oh my God, it's beautiful, intense.
Yeah. It's powerful. And yeah, I mean, I went through that about losing track of time, but not last year, maybe the year before that. I mean, there was COVID, everybody was kind of shifting and all over, but there was so much happening with my mother and even with my daughter and with my husband, but exactly that, like holding, and it was, it was very challenging. But then also too, around the same time, I saw everyone kind of like pop and have their breakthroughs and like things shift and like really land. So it's just fascinating that at the root, and I always say this working with the Akashic records, the we even if you're not talking to like a parent, that the soul level entanglement often is like it's real. It can be part of the reason we're not moving forward the way that our soul is ready to evolve. So being able to clear it up, whether lineage or more quantum through the Akashic records, is so powerful and definitely um, like important.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, very
Hmm.
important, very beautiful. It's amazing to me to see how the Akashic Records has become so, like, such an enormous tool. Like, it's like everywhere now.
Everywhere.
You know,
Yeah.
it's funny, I've never said this out loud, but I'm going to do that now. I just
Yeah.
recently watched, so there's a strong connection with me with Tibetan Buddhism and
Mm.
Padmasambhava, the Dakinis, Yeshi, all of those, that like pantheon of divine
Mm.
source and power. And just
Yeah.
recently, I found myself looking at some videos on YouTube, these movies that were put in place um, about these energies and these alchemists, these divine masters and their consorts, the
Mm.
male, female, and so forth. And then they went to this whole piece about the cloud, which is the akashic field in this particular,
Oh, okay, yes.
right? And then I hadn't made the connection before, even with Apple and the cloud, like storing things on the
Right,
cloud, right? And how that came actually
right.
from something very ancient. And so then I was leaning into the Akashic records, and it's like it used to be like so many of the technologies on the planet, it used to be just for a chosen few, like
Yes.
for particular masters. And now
Mhm.
there's so much more access in this time and space continuum, right? Of like you don't have to you yes, you're initiated to a certain degree to access the akashic records, but it's not like
Yeah.
you're doing, you can get
No,
access.
I say it in my certification. Like at one point, like it was only masters and a few select few that actually had access to the Akashic records. You were a mystic or a seer, there weren't very many. They would have access. Yeah. And now we see it all the time. I mean, I the only thing I can contribute it to is that we're just at a point in our consciousness and the evolution of our consciousness where the Akashic records are really here to like assist with the acceleration
Yeah,
that's happening. And so they are showing up, everywhere. I love to use the Akashic records specifically for transformation. Like I don't consider myself a reader.
yeah,
It's more in the realm of using the records for like embodied soul level transformation.
yeah. I hear
Yeah.
you and agree 100%. Like the
Yeah.
akashic records are it's a very powerful tool, and we don't want to sit around in stories all day. We want, right? We want to bring the energy.
Yes,
So it's cool that you can get access to reading what's happening, but the point of us being there is not that. It's
exactly.
it's like
Yeah.
to let go of
How to
all.
integrate the new embodiment of how we're being called to be. And that requires, I think, an understanding of transformation and actual, like, how do we embody more fully, like, the soul? So, and I think the Akashic records can do both, but it does require an understanding of transformation. So, yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. I think it's a fascinating time for us all to be here again.
it is. It
And
really
then
is.
also how beautiful that now we have the interweb. So like before the masters, we just used our senses, and that
Right.
existed, but not in the same framework, right? So now we have
Hmm.
that the esoteric framework, let's just call it. It's funny. I just felt like saying it's the golden womb, and I had never even used that phrase
Ooh.
before.
Ooh.
So it's like this golden womb, and we're all connected to it. But now
Mm.
it's like this. Yeah, it's also much more accessible because of these frameworks that we have, right? Me and you actually get to meet in this lifetime, and
Yeah.
commune in this way. And if we
Right.
didn't have this, then our souls might just be whispering to each other in the ethers, but
Hmm.
not in this capacity.
Yeah, we can connect that much more easily, clearly, and accelerate. Yeah. Oh, I love it. I love that.
Yeah, it's a very, very beautiful time, and what is to come is very,
Hmm.
very interesting and yet to be seen,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Yes.
Yes, to bringing all of our gifts, all of that deep desire, and the full embodiment. I think that you and me and all the divine beings who are like really coming in to embody and be imbued with
Mhm.
divinity,
Yeah.
we only, even in our conceptual mind, I don't know yet that we can fully even conceive
Right.
how
Where
profound,
we're going.
yeah, where we're going with this,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
What it can
I
become.
agree. I try to always leave a little bit like, or a lot, really. I understand, I'm here as a guide for like new paradigm leaders and way showers. But, where are we going
Yeah,
exactly? I think, a big part of it is leadership and sovereignty.
yeah,
That's definitely the first step of anchoring into the new earth or the new paradigm is stepping into our leadership and our sovereignty, embodying soul. I think we're getting a pulse on that much. Yeah.
yeah, for sure, sure.
Mm,
Beautiful.
thank you.
Thank you. So, lean in. Is there anything anywhere else that you feel like you want to go right now? Is there anything that you feel like you?
Hmm. How
Hmm,
much time do we have? Is it open
I'm
or?
flexible. We're open.
Okay, cool.
Mhm.
Well, I think the thing that's kind of on the tip of my tongue, I guess, actually has to do more in the realm of like birthing our sacred creations.
Amen. Let's talk about that. I also
Okay.
write down the word golden womb because
Okay, well there maybe that's why then. Yeah. Well, I'm talking about birth and I think too just like this it's almost like this, journey we've been on since the beginning of the podcast of, tapping into the internal, the softer whispers of the heart and the soul and anchoring into our channels. And very often, what comes after that is the birth of our sacred work, right? And the birth of our sacred creations. And, the other piece that's really coming through around this too is the gap that many women feel on this journey of like knowing it's like their sacred work is like, it's right there, or they can feel their vision, but it's like not here. And then how do they actually start to like birth the framework of these sacred offers and really start to anchor in that vision and that embodiment of who they're being called to be? We've touched on that a little bit, but yeah, do you have any like thoughts or yeah.
well, yeah, same thing. Like that space, that liminal space of structures, like being able to generate soul
Mm,
structures, new structures that want to come through the form. And those structures are like energy structures, right? So it's
mhm,
interesting right now when I'm speaking, I want to do this with my hands. It's like it's repaired DNA. It's like it's an
mm,
entirely different infrastructure that soulfully wants to emerge. And since it's a new landscape, there
mhm,
can be almost like an impediment, or when you're talking about that gap or that bridge, where it's like this
mhm,
is unknown territory because the old patterns have been destroyed. Right?
mhm,
The old ideas, beliefs, conceptual pattern structures are no longer present. And so
mhm,
it's kind of like it makes you want to go like this. It's like,
mhm.
I think I can, but it's like that merging of the divine feminine and masculine that
There
creates,
we go. Yeah, totally.
right? That
Yeah.
that so there's that deeper trust of, oh, the old stuff isn't there anymore, but how do I trust in the new, right? That is the
Mhm,
new raw material of of everything I am, the divine masculine and feminine, a new dance. And so
mhm.
it can, depending upon who you are and what your path is, it can take time, and it can
Yes,
require
absolutely.
patience and lots of love and care. I know about that very well,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. Yeah.
So
Yeah, I think
that,
my really solid new paradigm creations didn't really come through until maybe 5 years ago, like where those reunification templates like really came together. I felt quite anchored in my womb. And then the birth of, well, it was the flower of life and like a couple others, and how that started to flow through me. And it's not that the creations before that weren't beautiful and definitely still an extension of my essence.
yeah,
Yeah, but it was a different way that they started to transmit like through my channels. And I remember too pushing up, and I think this is another aspect of leadership, but really because they were different. Like they were paradigm shifting. They were here to touch in the wisdom of my creations were here to touch in on and help with the collective consciousness. And so they were different. And sometimes, our creations, I think, are either slightly different because maybe they're similar to someone else, but they're still different. And so there's this element of um, like ownership and trusting the birth of our sacred creations. I think it's such an interesting process because we can push up against, not trusting, like
yeah,
who, who's going to want to step into this, or am I just making this up, or like all, or it calls us into greater leadership and visibility. And we've got to like get behind our creations, even when we feel like they might be judged from others. And so I think it's an important part of the journey and an important part of the path, and kind of loops me back around to the very beginning of the conversation where we were just trusting like our own truth, our own perception, and how we had to start to cultivate that from the smallest foundation to again dropping in and allowing the deeper foundation to really hold our leadership, particularly when we start to bring through our sacred creations.
mhm.
Yeah. What was your experience like of bringing through your creations? I know sometimes they're like it's easier and more fluid than others, and some are really they really test us.
Yeah, they, it's always really tested me. It hasn't, oh, like, I don't, there has been flow, but it seems to
Yes.
be like very volatile. And I know that also we have different birthing frameworks, right?
No, that's
Even
fair. Yeah.
even the way in which we birth our children, like there's already sort of
Right.
an encoding, right, as to how we're going to navigate this. Um,
Right.
and so I have found it to be incredibly challenging and lots of big, big energy. So
Hmm.
big bouts of time lapses and like just a whole lot. And so it requires so much trust. So
It
over
does
and
require
over
a lot
again.
of
And
trust.
the down on your knees crumbling, like all of it is part of the sacred dance.
It
Um,
is,
right?
yes. And I find our programs will often initiate us. Like they, right? Like they are calling us to build our capacity to show up in a deeper space of leadership, to, integrate a new identity, whatever it is, to be able to really bring this creation forward. So I think it's another, aspect of trusting our leadership, trusting the creative energy. And I think it feels important to bring this forward too, because I know in my own journey, and then also working with women too, that sometimes it can feel like you want to give up. It's like not
Sure.
worth it, or it just can be confusing when we don't fully understand why the creation isn't fully birthing through or isn't fully landing.
Yeah.
So to know that oftentimes they are initiating us, and another layer and aspect of trusting. Yeah,
Agreed. Agreed. And even
beautiful.
honoring frustration and all of those energies that come up. So much of it was already there and is stored up. And this
Hmm.
initiation is part of the process of defragging and healing and removing those ancient energetics that are very big strongholds of protection and so forth. So it's like
Hmm.
being able to open up into that next level of birthing field. It's intense. I found it to be very intense, and the women that tend to be drawn to me, um,
Hmm.
similar in that way.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so it's interesting, but I do sense that there is an ease that's coming, like over the next few years. The this the elasticity, there's going to be a big shift
Mm,
as far as the
mm,
capability in the consciousness to hold, and for women to
mm.
even like be in the frameworks. I just sense that there's something that is really really moving out, and more that is coming through in the same way that we see that like
Mm.
generations build on each other.
The golden womb. But yes. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it can be really easy for some of the generations. Nothing's easy, but the consciousness
Yeah,
keeps shifting and changing. So the things that we might have been muddling around with in the mud, the next generation, we've already laid it out and the consciousness is higher, and boom, they can just go.
totally.
Right? We're just
Yeah.
handing the candle, or handing, what's the running stick called when you're handing the stick to the next person that's running? I forget. But
No.
it's like you okay, I've done this.
Baton. The
The baton.
baton.
Okay, great. The
Yes.
baton. And then it's
Yeah.
like, you go. It's your turn. Now you go. And we just like,
Yeah.
it just keeps opening. So I
Yeah.
think there's a lot coming through.
I think I sometimes feel and see that with my millennial clients.
Oh yeah. Oh my.
I'm like, that took me 2 years to figure out. That just took you 4 months.
You know what's so funny that you say about that? I've had so many women lately who are really honest in their shadow, who are like, I'm finding myself really aggravated that it's taken me so long to do this. And then these young kids are coming in as these visionaries, right, to play their part. And I'm finding myself really like angry or irritated. And I'm like, oh, yeah, it's fascinating.
Yes, and they also have like the technology piece
Yeah,
that I didn't really have.
neither.
Yeah, so it's like they've got like a few things that really lets them like execute and move quite quickly.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean it's like fascinating to watch, but sometimes I'm a little bit like, mm.
Yeah, for me, sometimes
Yeah,
I'm excited for them, but I'm also like the mother in me sometimes can get
yeah,
nervous. Like, whoa, where are you
this
going?
is true.
Like
Yeah.
that pendulum swing is like,
Mhm.
wow. And there's so much perversion. right, in the
Yeah.
fields.
Yes, this is
So,
so true,
so
so
the
true.
divine mothers in us that have
Yeah.
a lot of accumulated wisdom now, right? Granted, they have to bang themselves up like we did, and like they have to learn. It's part of the
Yes,
journey.
it's true though, and I do find I bring forward a lot of like caution, like in
Yeah,
a gentle kind
yeah.
of like, yeah.
Like,
Put off the gas. Yeah,
yeah,
just like yeah.
totally. I'm like,
Yeah,
well, I see where they're going. There's a lot of distortion, a lot of perversion there.
right,
That needs to
right.
be cleaned up. But okay, like
Yeah, yeah.
they'll
Here's what I'm feeling. Yeah.
exactly.
Yes. That's so true. So true.
It's
Ah, yes. What a beautiful conversation.
it's beautiful. It is beautiful. Are there any offerings or anything that are coming up for you that you want to share? That, of course, the ways that we'll list the ways that people can get in touch with you. But is there
Yeah,
anything?
absolutely. Yeah, head over to the akashicwomenschool.com. There's a beautiful like 7-day Akashic Heart Center journaling practice there you can sign up for and spend some time in the Akashic field. And I have ongoing enrollment for the Flower of Life Akashic certification. If that speaks to anyone and you'd like to immerse yourself, it is a body of work that's specific to new paradigm feminine leadership and prosperity, where we do learn the framework of the Akashic records and how to facilitate transformation. And I've got 2 spots opening for private work. If that ends up speaking to you, just reach out. But yes, thank you so much for having me. This was amazing. You're amazing. And I really, really loved dancing and just being in this conversation with you.
So
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it. Thank you for bringing your joy and your light, your wisdom here.
Thank
And we will
you.
And thank you to our
Thank you.
audience. And we'll put all the details below. And I hope that this was insightful for you. And I trust that it will be. So thank you so much. And bye for now.